In John chapter 16 and verse 13, Jesus said, I will lead, guide, and direct you into all truth. Let's not forget it, my friend. Jesus. I said Jesus is the one that's leading this thing. Jesus is the one that's giving us guidance and directions in our lives. And we must, I said we must follow Him, because if we get out of step with Him, if we do not feel His heart, if we do not see through His eyes, we get off in our own direction. And my friend, when we get off into our own direction, that's when we fail. That's when we end up down the wrong road. That's when God is not in it. That's when God is not at our side. That's when He is not in the plan, because we have missed Him. Let's not forget it, my friend. Jesus is the one that leads our lives and our church. 2 Samuel chapter 5, verse 23, and David inquired of the Lord. Now this is by Charles Spurgeon. When David made this inquiry, he had just fought the Philistines and gained a single victory. The Philistines came up in great host, but by the help of God, David had easily put them to flight. Note, however, that when they came a second time, David did not go up to fight them without inquiring of the Lord. Once he had been victorious, and he might have said, as many have in other cases, I shall be victorious again. I may rest quite sure that if I have conquered once, I shall triumph yet again. Wherefore should I tarry to seek the Lord's hands? Not so, David. He had gained one battle by the strength of the Lord. He would not venture upon another until he had ensured the same. He inquired, shall I go up against them? He waited until God's sign was given. Learn from David to take no step without God. Christian, if thou wouldest know the path of duty, take God by the compass. If thou wouldest steer thy ship through the dark billows, put the tiller into the hand of the Almighty. Many a rock might be escaped if we would let our Father take the helm. Many a shoal or quicksand we might well avoid if we would leave to His sovereign will to choose and to command. The Puritan said, as sure as ever a Christian carves for himself, he'll cut his own fingers. This is a great truth, said another old divine. He that goeth before the cloud of God's providence goes on a fool's errand. And so he does. We must mark God's providence leading us. And if providence tarries, tarry till providence comes. He who gives before providence will be very glad to run back again. I will instruct thee and teach thee in the way which thou shalt go. It's God's promise to His people. Let us then take all our perplexities to Him and say, Lord, what wilt thou have me to do? Seek God's counsel. Inquire of the Lord every time we need His direction. What manner of man, what manner of woman are you? Becoming a comforter and encourager demands sacrifice on our part. People are illogical, unreasonable, and self-centered. Love them anyway. If you do good, people will accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Do good anyway. If you are successful, you win false friends and true enemies. Succeed anyway. The good you do today will be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. Honesty and frankness may make you vulnerable. Be honest. Be frank anyway. The biggest men and women with the biggest ideas can be shot down by the smallest men and women with the smallest minds. Think big anyway. People favor underdogs, but follow only top dogs. Fight for a few underdogs anyway. What you spend years building may be destroyed overnight. Build anyway. People really need help, but may attack you if you do help them. Help people anyway. Give the world the best you have, and you'll get kicked, pushed, and stepped on. Give your best anyway. We must learn the value of personal growth oft times through tribulation and move on to the next steps. One step at a time, but moving ahead. One step at a time, but growing in God. One step at a time, but maturing in God, advancing in Jesus Christ. I remember a tragic story. about a pastor and his family. When I was pastoring in the same organization almost 30 years ago, Rapid City, South Dakota, a pastor and his family who loved God, loved their church, loved their community. This pastor was faithful to his family. He was faithful to his church. He was faithful to his community. He was faithful to his calling, to his ordination. One day after the Sunday morning service, his family, pastor's wife, 5 children, 3 boys and 2 girls. One of the boys just a baby. They were sitting around the table and they were rejoicing and they were basking in the blessings of that early morning service and how wonderful God had been, how He had moved so mightily by His Spirit. And then the storm broke. You see, there had been rain in the area for several days, which was unlike this area in South Dakota, but there was a lot of rain, and all of a sudden they began to hear on the news that the dam was about to break. The dam is about to break. The dam is going to break. And this pastor's home and family was right in the valley, was right in the line of fire, right in the line of water where the flood was about to come. So the pastor gathered his family together, and he had a Jeep, a 4-wheel drive, and he thought, well, the best way to get my family out of here and get them out of here quick is I'll load them up in the 4-wheel drive Jeep, and we'll head down the valley. And so they did. And on their way down the valley, a great wall of water hit that Jeep and toppled it and tumbled it, rolled it over several times. The 2 oldest boys were swept away. Then all of a sudden, Pastor looked over at his youngest daughter. She was holding the baby in her arms. And he said, honey, hold on. Honey, hold on. Daddy's coming. Daddy's going to help you. Honey, hold on. And another wave of water hit that Jeep. And in the next moment, that baby was gone. Well, 2 weeks later, 20 feet up in a tree, they found the baby. A mile or 2 down the river, one of the boys was found. 15 miles down the river, the other boy was found. Just like that, my friend, the storm comes and our lives are turned completely upside down. Well, you know, the district, they came together, and the community, they loved this pastor. He was a great man. He was a great family man. He was a great man of God. Now, 3 members of his family, in just a moment's time, they're gone. They come together and they said, Pastor, what are you going to do? He said, what do you mean do? What do you mean what I'm going to do? I'm going to stay right here, and I'm going to show this city that we are not fair weather Christians. I'm going to show this city that we do not serve a fair weather God, but we are going to stay here, and we are going to believe God just like we believed Him yesterday, just like we believed Him last year, just like we believed in the day that we arrived here. We're going to stay here and believe God and show this community that we serve a God that is able, and in the midst of our storm, in the midst of our turmoil, in the midst of our trouble, in the midst of our struggle, God will show up. Jesus will get in the boat with us, and He'll speak to the wind, He'll speak to the wave, and He'll say, peace, be still, and He'll bring us through. He'll help us. He'll encourage us. He'll give us what we need. Sometimes tribulation, turmoil, and adversity comes, but in the midst of the storm, Jesus shows up. The gift of mercy says, oh, don't let them suffer. Service says, let's get to the need. Giving says, how much is needed? Exhortation says, praise the Lord for the suffering. It will show us the next step of spiritual growth and bring us closer to God.